Harry's wife. Embarrassment in Indianapolis. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Well, as you no doubt are aware, last night, Harry's wife attended the Power of Women event in Indianapolis at the Marriott in the downtown. No sellout arena for her, akin to one of her idols that she would like to emulate, Michelle Obama, but instead an appearance at the Marriott in Indianapolis for the Power of Women event. Now, whilst Harry's wife will have once thought that she should have been the one that would be presenting at these arenas, because, of course, she's deluded and she believes that so many people are interested in what she has to say. Unfortunately, the delusion is maintained by those that do turn up to see her, that give her some credence that she is popular. Somebody asked me yesterday, will there come a point when nobody will want to interview her? Will there come a point when nobody will want to have anything to do with her in terms of presentations such as this? Well, you can already see, as I predicted numerous months ago, the downward spiral is occurring, that she's not speaking at packed-out arenas, but instead is turning up at a dinner in the downtown Marriott to far fewer people than she would want, and not all the tickets had been sold out for it. So the downward spiral is occurring, but unfortunately there are always going to be people that are going to give her some credence, will listen to her, will provide her with support. And they fall into two camps. The first is, of course, those who fail to see through what she is, and they've nailed their colours to the mast by supporting her. And they just cannot face the fact that they were wrong about her, either because their cognitive function is so low they just can't see it, or they realise she's not delivered on what they thought she would, but nevertheless they can't stand to be proven to be wrong, and therefore maintain a slavish devotion to supporting her. Those are the underlings. The second group, which are probably more problematic, are those that see that they can still get something out of her, that they have an agenda which she satisfies, and that they can utilise her, for instance, holding her up as the poster child of the poor victim oppressed as a consequence of the rampant structural racism that purportedly exists within the royal family. Those that use her as a tool to try and cause guilt amongst white people for white privilege, etc. Those that believe that the underlings remaining interested in her will be willingly wanting to pay to spend time with or watch something or read something that she's done, and therefore continue to promote her. So, whilst her popularity wanes and more people see through her, there's going to be a rump of individuals that will continue to support and promote her because they've either failed to see through her, they have seen through her in terms of they're disappointed, but they won't let it go because they've nailed their colours to the mast, and those that basically are using her for their own purposes. But the downward spiral continues. Now, on the day that Harry's wife was shinning up to the downtown Marriott in Indianapolis for the Power of Women event, Queen Consort Camilla was joined by Rainier of Jordan, Sophie Wessex, and Crown Princess Mary of Denmark, as she welcomes Mel B and Zara McDermott at a reception to raise awareness of violence against women. The Queen Consort hosted a reception at Buckingham Palace, not a downtown Marriott, not the Comfort Inn by the A1, not some seedy B&B out at Clacton-on-Sea. No. At the Jewel in the Crown, Buckingham Palace. Brief mention of this from Daily Mail. Queen Consort Camilla has hosted a reception at Buckingham Palace with guests including Spice Girl Mel B, Queen Rainier of Jordan, and Crown Princess Mary of Denmark. Camilla, 75, held the event in London today to raise awareness of violence against women and girls as part of the United Nations 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence. Well, given Harry's wife's love of the United Nations, what's she been doing with regard to activism against gender-based violence? Seemed to be pretty silent in that regard. Could it be as a consequence of the failure of the UN to pack out the last appearance of Harry and his wife means that Harry's wife has fallen out of favour? Or rather, the United Nations has fallen out of favour with regard to her and has been painted black. Camilla's reception was attended by around 300 people, including survivors and their families, as well as famous faces, including television presenter Lorraine Kelly, reality TV star Zara McDermott, as well as Ukraine's First Lady, Alina Zelenska. Queen Matilda of Belgium, the First Lady of Sierra Leone, as well as the Countess of Wessex, and former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's wife Carrie, and his sister Rachel Johnson were all present. So some pretty heavy hitters there. Camilla, who made a powerful speech at the event, spoke with Home Secretary Suella Braverman and Health Secretary Steve Barclay in the white drawing room of the palace. Dressed in her signature leopard print, former Spice Girl Melanie Brown, who was made an MBE for her work with domestic violence charity Women's Aid, was seen chatting to Camilla, who opted to wear an elegant white frock. The Queen Consort also spoke to TV personality Zara McDermott, who has spoken previously of her efforts to end the scourge of revenge porn. Camilla said in her speech that we are uniting today to confront rightly what has rightly been called a global pandemic of violence against women. Over the years in my previous role, I had the privilege of meeting many survivors of rape and domestic abuse and of sharing in the sorrow of people who had lost family members to violence. And again, I heard that two of the most powerful ways in which to help were to remember and to listen. We remember those women who have lost their lives at the hand of a stranger or of a person who should have loved them best. In so doing, we refuse to be desensitized by cold facts and figures, and we resolve to keep the names and the memories of these women alive. We remember Brenda Blaney, Mariam Kamara, Lucy Powell, Samantha Drummond, Yasmin Begum, Sally Turner, Hina Bashir, Jilu Nash and her 12-year-old daughter Louise, to name but a very few of those who have been killed this year alone. And we remember, because we cannot forget, all the other women and girls who died in similarly horrific circumstances. These women tragically can no longer speak for themselves, but we listen to those we can. Accordingly, pretty heavy-hitting event there at the palace, with all of its opulence and a pretty decent array of guests, it has to be said. Something, of course, that Harry's wife, if she hadn't fought against the institution, could well have been presenting herself. But of course, as you know, her narcissism took her in a different direction, running away across the sea. So Camilla is there with a pretty heavyweight reception taking place at Buckingham Palace. But what else does the Daily Mail tell us? Apparently, Joe Biden is expected to meet William and Kate in Boston on Friday, as White House and British officials race to finalise details ahead of royal couple's first United States visit since the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Kiss, kiss, bang, bang. First Camilla, now the Waleses. Camilla's getting those other members of royalty and prominent campaigners of domestic violence all there at a prominent event at Buckingham Palace. Princess and Princess of Wales heading over to Boston. They're not there to see the departed or get in the car. They're there to do their good works with Earthshot, and it appears that Sleepy Joe Biden is going to pop along and meet with them. Accordingly, another heavy-hitting news event, something, of course, Harry's wife would love. And, of course, the fact is that that amounts to very much something that Harry's wife would love to have been involved in. And the fact that these two events are taking place or have been reported on in and around her own appearance at the Power of Women charity event demonstrates, of course, how far her currency has fallen, how her stock has plummeted, but it also will wound her. The coverage given to Camilla and the coverage given to the Nemesis in relation to those various events and occurrences is of far greater weight than her own appearance. Harry's wife, of course, spoke at the Indianapolis hotel, and she jetted into the Midwest from California to be interviewed on stage during the event billed The Power of Women, an evening with Harry's wife. She was billed to appear with Rabbi Sandy Sasso, the first woman rabbi ordained by the Reconstructionist Judaism movement at the event at the Marriott Downtown Hotel in Indianapolis. Well, with all due respect to Rabbi Sandy Sasso, that isn't Rainier of Jordan, Sophie Wessex, Crown Princess Mary of Denmark. It isn't Queen Matilda of Belgium or the First Lady of Sierra Leone, and it's certainly not President Biden. So you can see the contrast there, which of course would infuriate a narcissist that her nemesis, and of course Camilla, who she's painted black by suggesting that she made a racist remark, means that they are streets ahead of her with regard to the prominence which she, of course, believes should be hers. Of course, at the event, tickets for it were a whopping $500 per head, with any photography or recording on the night banned. And she was on stage as William and Kate flew into Boston for the 3-day visit to the US, culminating in the Earthshot Prize Awards ceremony on Friday night. It's not known how much Harry's wife was being paid for her appearance, if at all, but according to the Daily Mail, PR experts believe she could earn up to £1 million per speech in the United States. Lord alone knows why anybody would pay anywhere near that sum to be subjected to an outpouring of word salad and industrial beige, but there you are. Now, of course, the fact that the event banned photographs being taken was, of course, part of an assertion of control. But some pictures were leaked, and you can see that some individuals managed to take some pictures of their attendance at this event, and the pictures have been provided from a group that were described as a strong team of at Ivy Elberg Beeville women, philanthropists who travelled to Indianapolis to attend the Power of Women event. The school tweeted and described it as a remarkable event this evening. And as you can see on your screen, the relevant pictures of those ladies are there. Now, interestingly, of course, I've talked about the attendees at Camilla's reception, and we'll find out in due course some more of the people who are attending Earthshot. Some heavyweight names have been mentioned there, obviously meeting Biden beforehand, and some of the stars that are attending Earthshot. And what does Harry's wife get? And I'm sure they're all lovely people, but basically a lot of middle-class white women, not exactly the audience that she thinks that she would deserve or that she should be talking to. Now, apparently the event was a sellout, but if you look carefully in the pictures that are appearing on your screen, it does look like there are some empty spaces behind. Now, it might just be that these pictures were being taken before guests had taken their seats. It's possible, although you'll see the food was already out, so you would have thought that everybody would be seated. So I leave it up to you to make your own mind up. Is it the case that Harry's wife's PR pumps out that, yes, it was a sellout event, whereas the pictures suggest otherwise? Do the pictures truly show the event when it was full swing with some gaps, which you can see behind the women in the pictures? As I mentioned, I'll leave it up to you. But assuming that there were gaps, of course, that would wound Harry's wife because it's not a sellout, that she couldn't garner the popularity that is obviously being enjoyed by the nemesis, Princess of Wales, and Camilla, Queen Consort. And thus, it would be embarrassing. She doesn't feel embarrassment, of course, as a narcissist. What she experiences is wounding. Wounding at the knowledge that the nemesis and Queen Consort are hosting more heavyweight events that are gaining greater coverage and prominence, and also the wounding of the fact that there would be empty spaces and that she can't even fill a downtown Marriott to talk about whatever it is that she spoke about. It's demonstrative, of course, of her continuing downward spiral and demonstrates the embarrassment that was experienced in Indianapolis, albeit everybody else would see it as an embarrassment, bar the sugar lumps, and of course for her, it would result in wounding. How would she deal with that? Well, she's not going to start berating the audience saying, well, thank you for turning up and fuck you, the miserable bastards that didn't bother turning up. I can't believe that this hasn't sold out. Instead, she will have complained about the fact that it hasn't been publicised properly, or perhaps make excuses. Was the weather bad that day, perhaps, and people couldn't make it? But it wouldn't be her fault. She wouldn't see that it's down to the fact that she's not that interesting and not that popular. No, it would be something else's or somebody else's fault that there was a failure to sell out, if that was indeed the case. Overall, of course, nor would she think to herself, look at what the nemesis is doing, and look at what Camilla is doing, and look what I'm doing. I've got the shitty end of the stick here, but it's no surprise, really, after the way that I've behaved and the fact that I have nothing meaningful or interesting to actually say. No. She will see that it's just typical that those two get the great gigs whilst they're horrible racist haters, and that she is having to pick up these scraps, which actually she would either think, well, this is more real. This is dealing with real people. This is boots on the ground kind of stuff, not poncing around to reception, although, of course, that's the kind of thing she'd love to be involved in because it would equate with her deluded sense of status. But her narcissism will try and make good of the situation, whatever way, and will never ever allow her to realise that she's the problem that has generated the situation that she finds herself in. So either she'll blame other people for the failings, or make out that what she's doing is far more important than what they're doing because she's keeping it real, even though she's talking to an audience of people that she really hardly ever identifies with because they're not part of the optics that appeal to her, nor the demographic that she normally seeks to try and represent, although, of course, much of her behaviours in her life before she joined the royal family were seeking to be a middle-class white woman. So it's quite ironic that, according to these pictures, many of the audience are middle-class white women. Accordingly, not a great outcome for Harry's wife in Indianapolis, as was to be expected. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.